is Chris Spiker.
I'm Aaron Goldstein.
Oh, Aaron, that's right. I was going to take this burden off your shoulders. So we got Brett Banks back, Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District. Welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you.
What is the A.V.A.Q.M.D?
We are the regulatory agency for the Antelope Valley when it comes to air quality. So we permit industrial sources of air pollution.
I'm pumping gas.
We would permit your gas pumps. If you pump gas anywhere in the Antelope Valley, you should see our 800 number there that says if you have any problems with this pump, call this number, and that will send one of our field representatives out there to make sure that it's operating properly.
Because what comes out of that pump is...
Sure. So the interesting thing for the Antelope Valley, unfortunately, I guess, is because of our geography, we're located between the San Joaquin Valley, the Bakersfield area, and the Los Angeles Basin. Unfortunately for the Antelope Valley, those are the two most highly polluted areas in the country. And we get their overflow, so to speak. We get transport pollution over the hill into the Antelope Valley. In the what most people know of as smog. So what we're trying to do is regulate the components of smog to reduce that in the Antelope Valley.
We don't want to add to it.
Absolutely not. And everybody knows that we have pretty good air quality except for that transport. That's why we have Plant 42 here. That's why Edwards has been here forever. Great region for flying and flight tests and things like that. So it's critical that we continue to better our air quality and keep it at a level where Edwards and Plant 42 can thrive.
And there's people who got to breathe.
And people have to breathe.
That's the important one, isn't it?
It is. Our area has a high incident of childhood asthma and COPD, so those are things that we're actively trying to reduce pollution to rectify some of that.
But you see the stories of old timers in the 30s and 40s, and they came here because they had bad health. They couldn't breathe, and they came from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And we had tuberculosis facilities here for the clean air. I think that's why they came.
No, you are right, but it had a lot to do with, our elevation, the clean air, and so on. But as the areas in Bakersfield and Los Angeles, Los Angeles has a long reputation for high air pollution and bad smog. And when that gets to a certain level, it just starts creeping over the hill.
Yeah, so they make it there, and then because of the topography, it collects there, and then they hope for a good wind, so
Yeah.
it'll blow somewhere else.
And that's somewhere else,
Which is
a lot
us.
of times, is the Antelope Valley.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
we're like the lungs, aren't we?
We are.
So when it rains, rain clears the sky, right?
It's a good thing. Yeah, we really appreciate it.
You don't mind the rain.
Not at all. It's a good thing.
And wind?
Wind also helps us in some respects. So what we're talking about is smog, and wind will help us remove some of that from our area. Now, the downside of our local high winds is we get a lot of particulate pollution, which is blowing sand and dust. And that's another thing that the Air District is responsible for trying to regulate.
Because there's stuff in that dust.
I
Can
think
be.
most people know that there's a potential for valley fever, which are fungus spores that are in the soil and get airborne when that soil is disturbed and the wind blows it around.
And that is under your purview?
Not the valley fever portion
Yeah.
of that. That's Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. But we definitely get involved in controlling dust from construction and activities like that.
What's the best way to control dust?
We found a lot of different methods. Probably the easiest one that you see people employ is the use of water, but the difficulty is we live in a desert. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a difficult quandary there on how much to use and when to try to reduce that dust. But the one thing we've seen is because they have to try to remove certain things that are going into the landfill, we've started to use wood chips a lot because that can get laid down in an area and really keep the dust from blowing. So you'll see that a lot in the valley, especially out on the west side of the valley. There's a lot of higher use of wood chips now.
And hopefully these are I know from camping, they don't want you bringing in outside wood to an area because there's stuff on that firewood.
Right.
So how about the wood chips? It must be fairly clean, or there's no bad guys in there?
Yeah, we've taken great care, and it's taken a while to really determine what is the best type of wood. Most of it is palm fronds from palm trees that come from the Los Angeles area, and has limited amount of trash in it, and does a really good job at
Doesn't
that
have
suppression.
seeds.
Doesn't have seeds. Doesn't have the potential pathogens that might be carried in other things.
And palm fronds, I think, are hard to compost, so they would be good.
Tough to break down, very fibrous.
Yeah.
Being a florist and
Yeah.
understanding plants, that's what makes it a really good dust suppressant.
Yeah, Waste Management doesn't want them in their yard recycle.
Yeah, there's a lot of regulations in California to try to keep that type of material out of a landfill and leave what is available in a landfill for our regular refuse, right? So you'll see a lot of diversion activities like that.
Very good, you're doing something right. But why do we have a separate A.Q.M.D from Los Angeles?
We touched on it a little earlier that Los Angeles's problems are much different than the Antelope Valley's. And years ago, the Board of Trade and the local municipalities got together and said, it really doesn't make sense to have the regulations that are in the Los Angeles basin because their problem is much more severe and it's a different type of problem. Let's create our own agency that can focus on the issues of the Antelope Valley.
And that's a good thing for the Antelope Valley.
I think so, because what we really try to do is work with business to find ways that they can meet the regulations and still be successful.
Which leads us into the next topic, annual lawnmower exchange events, one of those programs.
That's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people really realize, but an older lawnmower that you probably had 20 years and operate on a weekend basis is a high polluting piece of equipment. And now what's happened is, with the advent of batteries and increased battery storage, there are electric replacements that remove pollution from that. So what we try to do is we have an event every year where we greatly reduce the price of an electric lawnmower. A new electric lawnmower can cost you anywhere between $300 and $500. We ask you to bring your own old lawnmower in, exchange that, we crush it and remove it from operation, and we'll give you an electric lawnmower for $145. And with that, we're removing sources of pollution that are in your local neighborhood. So we don't necessarily have to go to the larger industrial sources to remove that, but we can do it just in your local neighborhood and clean up, your neighbor's air and your air also.
And then what's the vehicle scrap program?
Same kind of thing. I mean, vehicles have gotten a lot more efficient. The emissions have been greatly reduced, so the newer vehicle, the less emissions. So any vehicle that's 20 years old or older, we'll buy it off for you for $1,000. We crush that vehicle to take it out of service, and we'll turn over a check to you for $1,000 that hopefully you can put towards buying a newer vehicle.
I bet there's a limit to that. I mean, one car per family, or one car per address, but how many of those do you do in a year? Do you have any idea?
We do anywhere between 8 and 12 a month.
Really?
So, 150 a year, something like that.
You don't do this at your facility?
No, we have a local scrapper in town
Yeah.
that the vehicle is taken to, and they show proof of destruction, and we write them a check.
Wow, you've got a lot going on over there.
Sometimes it gets pretty busy for our little agency, yes, sir.
And how about the alternative fuel vehicle? How does that work?
Same kind of program. What we're trying to do is really incentivize people to buy new, efficient electric vehicles in town. So if you're an Antelope Valley resident, if you buy from an Antelope Valley dealer, we will give you up to $2,500 towards purchasing a new all-electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid.
I bet the car dealers like you guys.
It's helped. There's other incentives out there from the state and the federal government, but most areas don't have it from their local agency. So our incentive only helps sell those cars.
Me being an old timer, I kind of liked the old style of car that made noise when it was running, so you could hear it coming up behind you?
That is difficult with the electric vehicle.
They're gonna put little bells on them or something?
Some of the new ones you've heard actually play a little tune as they're driving up behind you.
I think Gene Simmons sold them some music for that tune. As another way to make a...
Possibly. Some of the tunes I heard haven't really reminded me of Kiss, but that's possible, I guess.
And I saw you in the Antelope Valley Press. Now, how much did you have to pay to get this headline, Residents Get Way to Read Air Quality?
Actually, Julie Drake, the great reporter that's worked in the Valley Press for a long time, called me up and wanted to know a little bit about that. And those are relatively inexpensive sensors that we've purchased and residents can purchase for about $200, and it gives them the actual air quality at their business, residence, wherever it's installed.
These are people that are wondering what it's like, or are you trying to put these strategically around the valley?
Our project is to try to put them at schools, because then the administrators at those schools can get a good idea of what the air quality is at their individual location, and can use that to help students when they're deciding if they should go out for recess or hold a sporting event or so on like that.
Is that the particulate sensor program?
It is.
It's very cool. This is, I think, the best use of a newspaper is to write a good story with a photo that lets people know about what's going on in the community.
It was definitely a big benefit for us to continue to get the word out about the program.
You got photo creds.
I did provide Julie the credit.
This is your copy. I'm going to put that in your scrapbook, if there's
Sounds
still
good.
room in your scrapbook.
There's room.
How many years have you been over at the A.V.A.Q.M.D?
We started in '97 and I started in 2000.
Well, Brett Banks, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks,
And
Chris.
we've been talking with Brett Banks from the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District.